can you know what we're doing at the moment?
Fun fact, Jackson.
So I have no idea. I didn't know Jen wasn't going to be here. I stuffed some of my other car out. I just discombobulated, sorry. First up, I guess, is I'm all interested in what the exact topic is. So, first up is to entertain a motion to approve the minutes from August 19th, 2019. So moved. Can I get a second?
I have a
Any questions, comments? Everyone good with it? All those in favor? Keith, why don't you be in favor of too?
Oh, we need to be.
Yeah. Opposed? Abstained? So the, what?
2-2 doesn't do it.
2-4 or 2 abstains would actually not pass, I don't think. Maybe it would. I guess it would, I'm not sure how that works. But
Because you were
you
here.
can
We
vote.
were the only ones
You
here.
can vote to approve the minutes.
Yeah,
even
still
if you're
can.
not here. It's just, if you were to, like, wanted to ask for the minutes to be changed anywhere here,
Yeah.
that'd be kind of a tall order, but
Yeah.
Right.
it's just an official process to officially adopt the minutes for
as
public.
the record of what happens.
So there's no reason, just because someone's not at a meeting, that you can't actually vote to approve the minutes. It's always going to take priority to people, so you have to abstain to approve the minutes. If you don't approve the minutes, why wouldn't you approve the minutes? Unless you have a reason to not approve them, I think you should always approve them if you're not there. Brings us to citizen comments. Is there anything at this point? Hearing done, presentation of school FYI items. Old business. Early childhood ed update. And at the last meeting, Ben suggested that maybe we take this off the table, and at the time I had objected, and got a couple more people here that weren't here at that meeting. I was talking to Justin a short while ago about it, and suggested maybe that we either take it off the agenda or come up with a plan for it, which seemed like a reasonable idea to me. I don't know how the board feels about it entirely.
I would say let's take it off the agenda until we have a plan for it. We can always talk about it in board member issues, should there be something. But people, we've been told before, people hate seeing that just sitting there. So anybody who's against this, when they see that show up every week, it's going to make it even worse.
So take it
That's
off.
my-
with the
that's my
intention of still creating a warrant article, but taking it off.
Well, take it off till we have a plan. Then we can put it back on.
Yeah, I mean, if I can jump in for a second, because I had the opportunity to watch the meeting last month, and I think Gail spoke well to what she and I had kind of come up with, which is that when you have it on the agenda every single month, people think that action is happening, but in fact, there's no action happening right now. And she and I, independently working towards coming up with yet another iteration of this, have reached yet another dead end, which is that we don't have this, that the option that we thought we had, we don't have. So, you know, as one independent board member, I would be forgetting it, taking it off the agenda. I don't think it's going to be beneficial or helpful for us to kick this to listening posts or see how people feel. I think we have two choices. One is we either go forward with the original plan we had and we say, we're going to do that. That's our best offer at this time. And we see if we can make that work. We might need to revamp that. We either do that. I think otherwise we have to consider the idea of school choice and say, okay, we'll give a stipend to people. If we really believe in early childhood intervention and we cannot supply it in our own town, then we have to look at that option.
Are we allowed to do that yet? I didn't think we were allowed to do that.
Boy, that would be a real tricky thing, because you can't use public dollars to go to anything that you want within the school district right now.
No, but we could certainly do something. I mean, we do have the option of saying, okay, we will approve certain preschools. Maybe it's the Bartlett Public Preschool, whatever it is. We will provide a stipend of up to a certain amount of money that will only go to them, and we're not necessarily giving it to the people. And look, no one's more sensitive to the risks and benefits of school choice than I am. I wear a very different hat when I'm on that side of the table than I am here. So it's something that we would have to very carefully consider if that's truly beneficial for our students. But look, we came up a long time ago and we said, we know that the voters and our board, the majority, feel early intervention is important. Early childhood education is important. If we truly want to meet that need, it's not mandated, but if we really want to do that, then we're going to have to figure something else out, because there are no more options in town. We're not building a new building right now. We're not using the other buildings. We either use our space and we make it clear that it's not the basement and we get more creative. Gail is going to shoot darts at my face right now. Or we say, okay, well, we're willing to give a certain amount of money.
So, I mean, to me, the idea of providing a stipend to people, first of all, I don't think it's legal to do right now. We can certainly provide tuition probably to preschool or to an established school, and Bartlett would be the obvious choice in that regard.
They're not taking any kids.
But I don't agree with the idea that we've exhausted all our options. I don't think that we've even really explored much of our options yet. Who's to say that we can't build a building? Who's to say that we can't, let's utilize the basement and really settle that issue if the basement? I mean, it would be smart for us to finish off that basement room and use it if nothing else for storage and to do that. So, I mean, to me, the idea that we've exhausted we've hit a dead end on everything, I don't necessarily agree with that. Going back to the old business part and the fact that it's on there, I mean, to me, if people see it on there and they think that we're going to be discussing something about it that evening and don't understand the idea that it's on old business to keep it on our radar, to me, I mean, we've explained that one enough that people should understand that by now. And if anybody new who doesn't understand that, it's a pretty simple thing to understand. It's like, it's going to be on old business, but if the board wishes to take it off of old business, I'm okay with that too. But to me, we can kind of say, we're going to put it in the building that we have and force the issue like we did the first time, and allow the town to vote on it. We don't really need to do a lot of planning as far as that's concerned. But in that process, I would like to look at finishing off the basement, because we should do that. We have a library in town. We couldn't use the old library and create space that way. Well, what about the idea of busing your kids down to the library when they need it to be done? I mean, we have buses that are available during the day that aren't used. I mean, I don't know whether that's an option or not, but it's certainly something that we can consider. The idea of building a new building in town, that's certainly cheaper than tuitioning our kids to Bartlett, tuitioning our sixth grade to Bartlett every year. I mean, so the idea that we've explored all our options, I think, is kind of not true in my opinion. We could certainly put it on keep it on the agenda, come up with a plan for having it in our building, allowing the town to vote for that. I think at the very least we owe the town that. We took it off the table last year because we didn't have that plan flushed out. And maybe we don't get it flushed out again this year, but I think we'd have a lot of angry people in town if we went down that route and didn't explore all of what our options are.
I think one of the things that we don't talk about very often, because I think it's frowned upon to talk about it, is the fact that we owe it to our community to have another vote, because the first one that we voted on would have passed had the vote been done differently. And the vote wasn't done wrong, but it wasn't done right. And our community would like, I think, a second shot at voting on it. And some of the community members that wanted a preschool in town have moved to Bartlett. But
If we're just talking about it being on the sheet of paper right now, that's all I was really prepared to talk about right now. I don't think it should be. And another reason I don't think it should be is, let's say that 2 months from now, we do have a huge development. And it's just gonna say that on there, like every month, 2 people show up at our meeting, and we talk about it, and everybody's like, oh my God, why didn't anybody tell us? And we're like, well, it was on there. And I'm like, well, that's on there every month. So that would just be, if we got something to say, let's put it on there. If we don't, we can still talk about it. But I just, as far as it being on the piece of paper, I don't know if that's the right thing.
I think I'm at the point now where, I mean, arguing whether it's on here or not, I think when something's on an agenda, it tells people that you plan to talk about it. So if we don't plan to talk about it every month, we should take it off. That aside, I'm not going to live or die on that sword, but as far as whether to move forward or not, or how, having worked on this intimately for several years, no one has come forward with a viable option. And I think the people that did work on it, we did look at building a new building. We did look at busing people places. We did look at using the old library. We did look at using the new library. We looked at the church. We looked at the Whitney Center. We looked at the parts of the Whitney Center. So I guess what I would do is request, is there a leadership as far as coming up with a new plan? Because I actually would be fine saying, look, we want to send it to the voters because we feel like we have that obligation. Let them vote on the plan that we had. That was the best that we have. If we can improve that plan, that's fine. If not, we need to step back and wait for new development to come forward, right?
And I also think that if that vote had been done differently, we would be in our second year of preschool this year, with a majority, at least, 6+ votes in favor, and us doing it really, really well. Having learned a lot in our first year with the preschool in our little school, and having improved a ton with the second year. And I think that our preschool would be up and running and viable, and great in the school as it is now. Because I don't think that we would have it any other way than to not do it well.
So, what do we want to do with it? Do we want to wait for Jen until we're next month and we have a full board and we can vote on whether we're going to pursue preschool or not? 'Cause
Yeah,
think
I mean,
it's- what I'm hearing is, whether it's on the agenda or not, to me is completely
Yeah.
a silly conversation. It's, are we going to pursue preschool or not?
Yeah.
So here's where I am. I would love a preschool, kind of with Jess. Right now, I really don't think it's a good idea to cram another, whatever it is, 15 kids and 2 more staff members in that school. I don't think that that's the right option. Should the basement get finished someday and that's a viable thing, maybe that's something we can talk about. But with the existing rooms in there, I don't think it's the right thing to do. We're obligated to educate the other kids. Will they be suffering now with, 15 more, however many more we said we were gonna put in there? I don't know.
Well, it's under old business right now. I mean, it's typically kind of the chair and Kevin that decide what's on the agenda or not on the agenda. I think the idea of, I'd like to have a full board before we might need to take a vote to either pursue preschool at the school board or not. I think is where we're at. I mean, and let the majority decide. Let's wait until.
Did you look at all options for this building?
When I tell you, this wasn't just me. I just wanted to be clear. There have been so many people that have helped out with this. Why I feel so confident at this moment, because I think you guys know, I generally try to really look at this side and that side. We've talked to the Friends of the Whitney Board. We've talked to the community.
But they don't want it in here?
No. I mean, we personally met with them. They were very uncomfortable with the idea of us taking any space. Now, look, that doesn't mean we can't force
Even though
the
we
issue.
already used that space?
Yes,
They still didn't.
they said we could not modify any space, because we talked about, well, could we put some books in there? Could we use the space in a different way? It was not, am I recalling it?
No.
I mean, they were clear that that was not an option. I mean,
Support of that.
I have to say, I was a bit surprised when we got the email from Julie Atwell about the lease, because I thought the PCA was going to be a lot more supportive. That was a dead end. If we chose to pursue preschool, again, my vote would be to go back to that original plan and figure out, it's not that we can't use the old library, but we would just have to rent it on a regular basis or sign up for it on a regular basis, the way the rest of the townsfolk do. We're not going to get a lease. It's not going to be something that we can secure, that we can be confident that it's going to be ours. And so, for my part, why I don't feel like we can pursue it is that we really only came up with one plan that could work. I mean, if you think we can build a building, if you think we can get people to sign a warrant article in March to build a building this year, I would love that leadership. I mean, the folks that showed up at that vote, I personally called a number of them who were very vocal, and I said, educate me, please, give me I want to be smarter, I want to be more clever, tell me. No plans have come forward. So that's what's baffling me, is that, and now, look, if the rule came down that we had to have preschool, I thought about this since I watched the video from last month. What would we do? If we had to put a preschool, what would we do?
We'd pick Bartlett.
We'd pick Bartlett.
That would be our knee-jerk reaction.
Right. I was gonna say,
I wouldn't do that.
I just meant that would be our knee-jerk
Right,
reaction
right.
if we had to
Yeah.
do something now.
Right, they're our safety school.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if they, let's say they're not taking them, would we just go back to that original
Well, I was going to
plan?
say, I don't even know that Bartlett is an option anymore. We'd have to
Yeah.
talk to Bartlett about
Yeah.
that. And
Well,
that's-
if the state mandated and we didn't have it, they had no choice.
And-
I would thought that that's what we
And,
talked
and so,
about.
Jess, I'm hearing pretty clearly from you that you either want to offer the same thing that we did before,
Yeah.
or not at all. Kept that. You seem to be pretty open to looking at having it the same option that we did before, and then you've got more other things. Personally,
I don't know if there are other things.
I don't think we've ever considered building a new building seriously as a school board. We've never explored that option, as far as I know.
No, I mean, the
I
committee.
mean, a committee that kind of thinks of it and then shoots it down right away isn't exploring building a new building. I don't know whether the town would go for building a new building or not. We've never presented it to the town. So the idea that, I mean, are we going to build a new building that would be approved by March? No, that's not going to happen. I understand that. But that doesn't mean that it shouldn't be part of a forward-thinking plan, from a school board at some point, because at some point preschool is going to be mandated by the state, and our best option is going to be keeping them in town as far as being fiscally conservative about it. And so not having a plan that would do that someday would kind of not be the right thing to do in my mind. And it comes down to what space are they going to utilize. And we have a library in town, we have the basement space, we have land here. I don't know whether we can build a new building on this property or not. No one's ever really looked at it. So I think we have options that we can explore. But I think that what we should do at this point is wait for our next meeting, and when we have a full board here, just decide whether the board is going to pursue preschool or not. We'll just take a vote on it then.
That's fine. Just one other piece to this is that I am 100% on board with the idea of forward thinking. And I've been beating that drum for us to do our own strategic plan for years. Every time I turn around, and you're going to hear me ask for it again tonight. But if we were to talk about building a building as part of a bigger picture, and we were to look at a 2-year plan, 3-year plan, 5-year plan, I'm 100% on board with that. But the idea that we are going to get voters to support building a building for preschool when we couldn't even get them to support the idea of a plan that could be reversed if it really failed, right? If we put a preschool in and we didn't modify our structure that much, we easily could have changed things, and it was flexible, and it was adaptable to whatever happens, right? Like we get like 20 preschoolers, okay, we modify the plan with our 6th graders, whatever it is. So, as far as the idea of building a building or something like that, again, we can make that a separate conversation, but as far as preschool goes, I just don't see it as viable. I mean, even the people who are in support of it are concerned about the cost. So do we want to just table it until next month until we have a full board?
That's what I think we should do is when we have a full board, vote as a board as to whether we're going to pursue preschool or not.
And I guess what would be helpful, I think, is that let's figure out if we're going to pursue it, how are we doing that? And I'll just say, I think if we really want to put this to bed once and for all, it was a good plan. And it's not just because I worked on it. It tried to balance the needs of various constituents in the community, fiduciary needs regarding money and things like that, flexibility that might be required, and our actual resources that we had at our disposal. So if we're going to do it, between now and then, if you do have other ideas, it would be a great time to come forward with them.
The only thing I would say to that, Jess, is that the idea of putting it to bed, I understand how one person might have lost energy to pursue something, and that's fine. But a board should never put anything to bed necessarily. It's always going to be, our board's going to change someday. To get this building here the way it is today, that was over 6 or 7 years of planning. Plans that were brought up, shot down, voted down. This whole building started out, they were going to put 2 temporary classrooms out there. And that process went through 2 years before we put the addition on the school. So, things take years to accomplish. And the idea, because, one idea didn't pan out, that we should put it to rest. That's not the way that this town works and has gotten things actually done and in the ground. So, but as far as building a new building, I have no idea whether the town will support that. And this board has never presented the idea of building a preschool to the town. People might think, well, that's crazy, they'll never support it, but how would you know until it's actually presented? And if you present something like that and the town shoots it down, then we know where that plan is, but at least we have something on paper to say that we can do this someday. And we certainly know that at the very least we have the exact same option that we did before. And I think that it's going to take a full board to decide whether we're going to pursue that option again or not. To me, because we can always bring it back up again, but if the 4 of us want to vote on it tonight, we can. There's no saying we can't vote on it again next month to see whether we'll pursue it or not. But I think we're going to have a 2-2 split on that right now as to whether we would pursue putting it in the building that we have.
So just for clarity of the record, I don't want this to be perceived as us not pursuing it because we're tired or exhausted or whatnot. I think we've exhausted our options. And I think if we don't come up with something new, we either need to go back to whatever our original one was, or again, come up with something new. And I also just want to be clear, when I say putting something to bed, what I mean is we take it off the agenda and we are not actively working on it as something that we're going to bring to the voters this year. Because in my mind, I'm looking to talk about forward thinking. I'm spending a lot of time with Kevin and the other towns' reps, looking at high school, looking at other major issues that we have to deal with as a board. So, you know, to go back to our original conversations, I think they all need to be pieces of a bigger conversation. And, you know, it's a matter of how much energy do we all have and what are our priorities. And so, you know, again, it comes back to if we had a plan, then we would know what we wanted to put our energy toward.
The way I see it is that last year, when it came time for warrant article, we all decided to not put the same plan forward so that we could exhaust some of these other avenues, like old library, like other space, all of those kinds of things. With those all coming to a dead end, I think that that was due diligence that we all, in varying degrees, felt like was a good idea. So we did that. So the plan as it was to put the preschool in the school and make it work was the plan that the community was, more than half of the community felt positive and was willing to see happen. And that's the plan that we would be in year 2 on right now. And so now that we've done some more due diligence, kick that plan back to the community, let all of those people who would like to vote again have the opportunity to vote on the plan to put it in the school and make it work.
If I may add, I think we need to spend more time, if we go back to the original plan of the basement, the library moving, we need to make the town aware that it's not 10 years ago when the basement floods up to your knees. You know, we have a generator now that kicks on, we've got pumps that keep, you know, we haven't had any measurable water in that basement since I've been here, since the very beginning of my tenure. So I think there's some residual folks, we talked about mold and mildew and things of that nature, so we would have to spend the time educating them of the improvements that have been made to the infrastructure to prevent something like that from happening.
Right. And is it possible to hand in hand do the improvements to the basement that the basement needs to make it usable space, just generally for our student population that is asking for more space?
Well, just generally is gonna be tough, because we thought that we were gonna do that, and then remember we got the quote, and it was like $30,000 or something just to do the room, so we kind of said, no. John's been doing a little bit of stuff.
He hasn't actually
Yeah, so
started.
we approved that.
It feels like a lot to have 2 off-limit spaces in our one facility for our students. That like upstairs is not a viable space for the students, and I totally understand all of that. And that the basement is an off-limits, unusable space for the students feels like a burden on the potential space to have unusable space in the limited space that we have.
All right, well, let's move on from early childhood ed update. Unless someone wants to make a motion to take it off the agenda, leave it on the agenda, and I don't.
We'll wait till next meeting, we'll go full board.
Sound good?
That's fine.
The family support liaison position, I don't think there's anything on that tonight. Is there?
Okay.
There's a meeting this Friday with the personnel committee. Bartlett did some work on what currently exists at Bartlett, and we're going to share that with folks from Jackson on Friday morning.
And that's actually a meeting, I have a work conflict, so I won't be at that meeting, but, so if anyone else would want to attend that, it's at 9 o'clock on Friday. I don't know if Jen will make it or not, if she's back.
She did, we checked with her,
Oh,
she
so
said she
she'll
was
be-
going to be
okay.
available for that.
Do you need another board member to be there to make the Bible meeting?
Nope,
Okay.
nope, but if you want to represent, ask questions, it's an open meeting.
In Bartlett.
Yeah.
Kevin, I think they're going to have something for us in writing, do you know?
They are.
Okay.
They are.
Do you think I could get a copy of that? Okay.
Yeah, right now, it's more of a laundry list
Right,
of things,
yeah.
so it's not necessarily a job description. And I think they're going to revisit it as well as
Yeah.
Bartlett.
I think we kind of decided especially as Victoria's finding her place and Vicky's doing her thing, that we're gonna kind of see where it all pans out, and they would just keep updating that list, so.
But once it gets electronically, you can send it to the entire board as well.
And then are we moving forward with exploring having that kind of a revamped position for Jackson students as a whole, from
Well,
the grammar school through the high school?
the personnel committee hasn't had a chance to talk about this. I think we're waiting to hear what they had to say, but I think it is on our radar that, you know, we have this guidance position to fill. And when we're talking later on about budget direction for 2021, maybe it would make sense to put some of the pieces together, family support person, guidance person, and have it a full-time position.
More
So-
of a reorganization, the enrichment, you know, however that, it would make sense to work with that personnel committee to really take a good study and say, are there gaps in what we're doing? Are there redundancies of what's happening here? And what kills you in Jackson really is a lot of part-time positions that are very difficult to fill. So I think that's worthy of taking a look at and saying, okay, how do we best serve that student population? Not only K-6, but if you want to extend 7, 8, 9, 12, this is what it could look like.
So Kevin, could we schedule just a Jackson personnel meeting following Friday's meeting?
You bet.
So that Jen and I can
Yep.
get together, because I think that might be helpful before our next school board meeting, if she and I could flesh that out to bring it back to the larger board.
I like that idea too.
Yeah.
As long as the SAU 9 and the high school would work with this person, would they be our kids' guidance counselor when they get to high school, or would it be a separate person? You know,
Yeah,
that's-
let's look at that.
That'd be worth taking a look at.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're short guidance people in Conway all the time, so I'm
Right.
sure if we came with our own guidance counselor, they probably would not object. I just don't know how that would work.
Right. Well, we'll see if we can come up with something to toss it out to you guys.
Tuition contract, anything tonight? No, Jess, do you want to?
So, one, I do really just want to commend Kevin. I know I think I've already said this to him, but I think the work that you did bringing us all together and just getting us all on the same page was really fabulous and truly an education, just from everything from vocabulary to legalities and things like that. Just as an update for our large audience this evening, I would say, Kevin, you sent out this summary report of the SAU 9 study committee. It would be really helpful, I think, if we were able to distribute this to folks. And for those who can't see it, it basically summarizes the meetings we had, and it's got brief highlights of what was covered. And on the SAU website, Kevin has done, and again, I'll stop praising you now, but you really did do a nice thorough job of getting it up on the SAU website. Siri. It's not narrated yet. I hear it might get narrated at some point, but it's not narrated. But truly, I think all of us learned something, many things, but just, you know, I did before we sat at that table. So, and then it also has, this document has critical dates for decision making, which I think our board needs to get familiar with. So if we can get this for our board for next month, I know Jerry has a copy of it, but something that is of particular concern to me is that I know the SAU is doing strategic planning, and again, I fully support that, and I would like our board to be a part of it. When you look at the timelines, you know, we need to have a discussion at the local level to see if some of these options are of interest by 2021, 2022, which seems like a long time away, but it's not. So I want to put out there formally that I really would like to get a formal planning process in place for our board, not just about the tuition contract, but what are our goals and what's our vision for our town? And whether it's a consultant that we hire and we find money in the budget, or we form a committee that is made up of townsfolk, board members, teachers, whatever. I don't want to work at cross purposes with you, Kevin, but I'm very concerned that we're going to get to 2021 or 2022, and we're going to be asked to participate in conversations, and we're just going to be reacting to what you or the other towns say without coming forward with our own forward thinking. So I want to just formally put that out there as part of this bigger conversation, that we formally engage in a planning process about what do we actually want to have happen. Do we want to have a preschool in place? Do we want to start to have educational conversations about what is the tuition contract conversation going to look like? How do we want to do that, right? I mean, we don't want people showing up here in 3 years saying, you guys haven't done anything, nobody told me if anything was happening. I'm not saying that anyone would ever do that, but you know, I want to kind of get things in the calendar so that we can say, okay, Kevin's going to be here to talk about the various forms of agreement on this date. So, Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah. The thing I would hesitate to do is to kind of inflate strategic planning for one thing versus the other. To me, you kind of said two things. We need to come up with a strategic planning for our goals in general,
Yes.
which makes a lot of sense to me. But as far as the tuition contract is concerned, I think that we need to have a specific committee dedicated towards that.
Definitely, yeah.
And to me, it would just be, when do we want to fit that into the timeline? So you're saying by 2022, we would need to be making decisions about things like
Yeah,
area
so
agreements, co-ops.
here, there's, when we looked at it as a committee, what we came up with is that we need a discussion at the local level to see if the district is, co-op or whatever form we would be looking at is of interest by 2021, 2022. So, it's going to be 2020 in a couple months. So if we were to, let's say we were able to get a plan moving, let's say we started planning in the spring, that, and the summer comes, the fall, we're 2021 before you know it. So, and again, I don't want you to think I think it's just for the tuition contract. I'm thinking if we could, let us decide what our vision and our goals are, so that we can make sure we're in alignment with the SAU is doing and what Gail's being told to do, so that we might say, you know what, Kevin, we love your vision, and that's his job, right? He's our leader. He's a charismatic, visionary leader to tell and bringing us all into his plan. Personalized education, all that. That's great. I just want to make sure we're doing it because we think it's the right thing to do, not just because we want to be agreeable to whatever is put in front of us and we're responding to it.
Yeah, just quick. Yeah, you have to understand, I work for you folks too. So, if you decide to go, it doesn't really matter, a totally different direction. I'm at your services. Ideally, I would love to have the experience of the high school for everybody because it's a good thing. But if people choose to go in different directions, you'll have our services as well to make that happen. One of the things that maybe, I hate to even say this, but I'd be willing to partner up with, you've been part of that whole, to do a presentation, just information-wise, up here in Jackson or Jackson Bartlett. If you wanted to host an evening, just to go through the website, some of those pieces. So if that's something that you folks would like to do up here, just for informational purposes, that might be a good start.
Well, I'm on board with that because I think at the end of the committee, I was like, well, I think Jackson's going to need at least 6 of these, just at various times. We'll have coffee, we'll have dinner. Kevin was like, whoa.
Hold on. Maybe a seat by dance.
So, and also I'm sensitive to the fact that it is 2019, so maybe we do that.
It could be morning, afternoon, whatever you think. If you talk to people and say, hey, it'd be great to have a coffee, luncheon, whatever, someplace.
Okay.
We can put something together.
And this is, we're under a tuition contract right now, but I don't know if I want to open up this more or not, just what you're saying there, but I guess I'm a little confused by it.
Okay.
As to what you mean by direction of things, other than kind of what the SAU9 is doing as far as personalized education, things like that. So like, are we talking about doing something different in our K through 6 environment? Are we talking about doing something different in our middle school environment, high school environment? Or are you saying we don't know those things yet?
I just think we don't know. We've never sat when we started planning a bit with 3 years ago, talking to staff and things like that. And the SAU has done. We see their strategic plan. They're coming forward. Their goals. I just think we should have an idea of where do we want to go. What do we want to do? Is it preschool? Is it And again, we can be pursuing more than one thing at one time. But I think that we should be looking down the horizon. If let's say we decide we want to move forward to preschool, but we don't get that going because we decide we want to build them, for 2 years. Now we're into the tuition contract conversation, right? So what if we were to just step back and say, okay, what's on the horizon? What are the big decisions we need to make? What are some of our goals as a board? That's all. It doesn't have to be a big complicated thing. It's just, how are we even going to pursue the tuition contract thing? Are we sending that to a committee and then they're going to come back and tell us, okay, we want you to do informational sessions starting on this date. We're going to do listening posts. We're going to have, we had talked about having a strategic plan for that.
To bring it back to the tuition contract, because that's what we're under, we know that's coming. So I guess what I'm asking is, so when do we want to publish? To me, a process for that would look like, we have to, decide where we want to send our high schoolers. Because it's going to be an option for us to say, the idea that, and don't get me wrong, I personally want to send our kids to Kennett, that's what I think we should do.
Right.
But I think that we should have a committee explore all of our options so that we know that going into when we have discussions about what we want to do, whether it's area agreements, cooperatives, and things like that. The first step is what we did before. The last time we did this was, what are all our options? Because we do have the option of sending our kids to Gorham. We might have suspicions, we do have the option. We might have the option of doing that. We might have the option of sending our kids to Freiburg. And that's not what I want to do, but we should at least know, because one of the things that was brought up, I think Randy Davidson the other day said that, well, Conway is the only option for anybody, so everyone knows that. That simply isn't true. It's
Right.
not our only option.
Right.
So, I mean, I think that we should have a committee that should, first determine where we want to send our kids, and once that's determined, decide, okay, this is what we should be pursuing, whether it's an area agreement, cooperative, or just a tuition contract. So what I'm asking is, when do we want to plug such a committee into the timeline?
I think the spring is good.
Spring is good. That's kind of what I would be thinking.
I
too.
mean, because right now, the only thing to really do is to call Freiburg and say, hey, can we come there, we need to do it 5 years from now? I don't think there's enough work to start that process now.
No, and that's why I'm suggesting, because I think, why not stay on this schedule that Kevin's already got for that initiative? Because he's kind of working with all of us, not telling us what to do, but,
So
you know.
that's good. So I'm just going to keep focus on what we're doing here. So the tuition contract, probably looking towards the spring to have a committee that would bring that discussion further. To get back to the other things that you're saying there, I think that you should talk to Jen and Kevin about whether or not that's something we want on a future agenda as far as goal setting for longer range and bigger picture sort of stuff. Because I agree with you. I think that we should be doing that. But let's get it into the agenda and into our process in a way that's a little more transparent and actually more coordinated, if that makes sense.
Sounds fine.
So moving on to instructional issues.
Yeah.
Personnel actions. Consider. Let's see, I'm sorry.
Consider approval or revised agreement with the Bartlett School District for guidance services.
Thanks. Entertain a motion for that. So
Make
moved.
motion. Second.
Discussion, questions? All those in favor? Consider a motion to reaffirm the election of Leslie Woodson as part-time world language tutor.
I make a motion.
Second.
Questions, comments?
Discussion. Have we, since we're striking out with finding this position, and Bartlett's doing French, is it worth trying to go back to do it?
We looked for any
Any
speaker of
language?
any language, Mandarin, Japanese, German, you name it. There were no qualified people out there. So Leslie had originally told me she could only work till December, and that's why she kind of cut herself loose. So she was willing to come back and hang in until December, and then we might be able to work out a part-time deal after that fact, but she couldn't guarantee a full-time program. So I am still looking at this point.
As our full-time job in Conway as well for language making. It's, in meeting with the other superintendents, the North Country is really, really hard.
I just thought French might be easier. with
Yeah,
Canadians.
they've been advertised for, you name it, everything. And
Do we vote on that?
No.
All those in favor? Consider request by John Marshall for childcare leave. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Business affairs. Any questions, comments on the budget status?
you're looking good so far.
Some of the expenses and receipts. Report on that. Just FYIs that are on there. Yeah. School lunch program summary.
Consistent with last year. Typically costs you about $10,000 more than what you have in there per year.
Where do we get our school lunches? What's the company?
It's Bartlett Cafeteria.
And do they make it?
Yeah.
Yes.
They make
They
food?
do.
Awesome. I
We've
mean, I've
had-
only seen like pizza. That's awesome. Yeah.
Is there any way to improve this? I mean, every year it's is it just the nature of the beast?
Yeah, they very
It's gone up
few.
and up. It
Yeah,
used to be
I mean,
about
I'm just-
$3,000 if you look
Yeah,
back
look at
5, 6,
this.
7
I
years.
mean, look at the back of this sheet, I mean, it's
Yeah.
getting worse.
Food cost.
It's,
Overall.
and more free and reduced lunches.
Yeah.
No, the free reduced, I mean, that's a good thing for you folks because you get
Well,
more
you get money back.
revenue back, and that's actually gone up. It's the food costs, labor costs, you know, I think Bartlett runs about $40,000-$50,000, Conway runs $110,000. There are very few places that can,
Break even.
yeah, break even. Larger schools sometimes, they have more of a population, more of a town cart.
We should just feed everybody anyway.
Would it make sense to put in our, when we give you direction for the budget, to put in a $10,000 deficit?
A line.
You know?
Just play it on that.
Yeah.
Do that.
Fund balance. Entertain a motion to retain fund balance from June 30th, 2019. And I guess before we make a motion on this, we'll just have some discussion about whether we want to do it and then how much we can incorporate the amount into the discussion.
Can I ask a question about this?
Sure.
So last year, like, one of my first board meetings, I think, was like the board meeting that it was being decided to like give back, like give our community back the fund balance. Is this what we're just talking about again? Is this the same?
Well, this is what we're talking about, but that wouldn't have been your first board meeting. It would have been several board meetings in because it would have happened in September and you came on in April.
I mean, so you're challenging my time. I'm lucky if
Well,
I
you
know
might
what
have
day it
been.
is.
One of
It was in the beginning.
One of the,
Maybe it was the one that I felt like I kind of
Yeah.
knew what I was doing.
it might be the one that first, you were first presented with something that you didn't understand very well.
Maybe that's what I remember it
This
about.
this isn't something that's easy to understand
Yeah.
for lots of different reasons, other than it's, to simplify it, it basically means whatever we didn't spend from last year's budget, and it was a total of $134,377. Of that, we can retain up to $59,142. So the remainder of that balance will go back to
Right.
reduce the tax rate. And so we have the option of retaining up to $59,142. And so last year, I think that we retained 25,000.
Yeah.
And so that remains in there, correct? As a part of the
Yeah,
total.
if you go back to the fund balance sheet, on page 2 of that, you will see, beginning fund balance, the 195,460 includes the $25,000. Okay, so you can't hold that over from year to year. So even if you decided today to keep this $59,142, that has to go back.
The 25%.
The 59,140.
I couldn't find how that.
That's just your phone.
So what you can do is you can keep 2.5% of the net assessment. So that's why you can't keep the whole $134,000. You can only keep that 2.5% of the whole net assessment, which is that 59,000. Now, why could you use that? How could you use that? You can't use that to put an addition on for a preschool. That's unallowable. But if a pipe bursts
Right.
or a tank goes sour, and you say, or your electricity goes out and you need to put in a new telephone pole, an emergency situation, the town of Jackson Selectmen would have to approve it along with the Department of Revenue Administration down in Concord.
Right.
So
also doesn't, if we had like an increase in special education.
No.
It doesn't,
No,
that's not what
You
it
can't
is.
use
So
it
it's
for
just
that.
like
That's what your
emergency.
trust funds are
Right.
for. Because they're saying you should be planning for some of these things. So it would really be a catastrophic event
Okay.
that you could apply for emergency purposes. Last year, you did keep $25,000. What you try not to do is go keep 50,000 one year, don't keep anything the following year, because that'll impact your tax rate too.
So that was kind of why we retained 5,000 last year, was to compensate for the tax hit from this year's, from both from last year's budget, so that we would apply to the October thing. So that's kind of why we retained it last year. We could retain some of it, I mean, so you can use it a little bit as far as managing the tax rates concerned from that standpoint. Personally, I don't like using it for that because the town in general has a large surplus. So it's like, it can be pretty easily managed in the selectman's office. We shouldn't be kind of in that business. To me, we should be using it kind of for the purpose of if we have an emergency expenditure that we need, which is kind of how we debated down to $25,000 last year. So I'm okay with 25,000 because it seems like something that is reasonable to use for something if something catastrophic happens. So, what are we thinking as far as retaining anything?
You guys talked me into retaining 25 last year, because I was against it. I'm probably going forward if you say 25.
I thought you were going already for it last year.
The very first year I was for it, until I understood that we could never, ever really use it. Then I said, then, no, let's give it back to the town, it's their money.
I'll make a
So,
motion to retain 25,000.
I'll second that.
how are you with that?
I'm going to vote on that. Yeah, I'll vote yes on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Only
guess-
because it keeps consistency, because we did it last year, so.
I guess I'm with that. So,
I mean, my whole ring was, unfortunately, we live in a town where if we had a $50,000 catastrophe, it's not a huge issue compared to you were in Berlin or
Right.
something.
Mhm.
personally, I've never been afraid of bringing a deficit spending article to the
Yeah,
town.
that's what I
Because we
mean.
have
Meaning,
we have a nearly $1 million fund balance with the town, so it's like, we can compensate for those things from year to year because it's there, but consistency, we want to retain 25,000, it's not fiscally imprudent, that thing, so I'm okay with it, so. Good to vote on it. All those in favor? The other thing too is that we talked about retaining that in there for offsetting the taxes. I don't think we anticipated having 134,000.
No, I thought thought we were going to be in a deficit, I thought. at the end of
Well, I don't
the
think
year.
it
It was like really
One
close.
place
I
looked like
thought.
it's gonna be
It was-
under
yeah.
30, but
Yeah, I thought it was going to be like really, really close, and I was shocked to see that much. Do we not pay all our bills?
do you want us to sign this one now, Kevin? or-
I do, I have, you can sign them at the end of the meeting, but these are the official forms that go back to the Department of Education and Department of Revenue. There are two different forms, so if I could get board member signatures, that'd be terrific. Did you sign both? Yeah.
2 pages, 2 pages.
Yes, do.
We all sign
You
this.
can sign as a chair, Jerry, because
This is 16.
16th. It's all right.
Yeah, sign here too. Just in case, sign here too. We all sign this, right?
Yeah.
yes.
Is there a particular line? Any particular line?
No.
Okay.
And you want to do the air thing under,
Under mine.
yeah, okay. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you. Sorry.
All right, so just have a couple things. I think the budget direction, if there are specific pieces, I think out of the personnel committee will come some recommendations for us to take a look at during budget time. You know, if there are any capital improvement projects, I think that John will work with your facility committee up here if there's anything that's going above and beyond, but if there's anything else, by all means, share those. You have the SAU 9, SAU 13 joint board meeting.
I think one thing to say that, I'd like us to see what Jess said, put a number in for that full-time guidance.
Or full-time guidance family support liaison.
Let's just put it in the full-time guidance.
Yeah, I think
right
that
down, so
they-
we
they
figure
heard
it
it
out.
from
Also
me.
speaks a world language.
That's right.
As long as they speak the language.
All the better.
Can they dribble the basketball? And play the clarinet.
Right.
Okay, so you do have an SAU 9 and 13 joint board meeting on the 26th. So whoever is the representative from Jackson, it's open to anybody. We may have an SAU 9 board meeting prior to that. We're going through the interviewing process for finance director. And hopefully we have somebody that will be a great candidate. The other piece is you do not have an indoor air quality policy. And what I have done is you need to have an indoor air quality policy. We have them in a couple different places, but along with this is a series of checklists and things that staff members have to fill out. And they take a look, and they take a look at the ceiling tiles, they take a look and do an inspection in the classrooms and the administration. John Stokey does as well. So what I'm asking for is for you folks to actually adopt this policy. This is a model policy that's and
So we're kind of doing this already, or we're gonna start doing this?
well, informally, we've been doing it, and now
Now it'll be more.
it will definitely be more formalized.
And is there certain locations?
What's the entire building?
Yeah.
Anywhere where children or staff members.
Can we include the basement in that, was where I was going?
It includes the basement already.
I guess I'll read through this too, since it's the first reading, instead of just getting on the record. And if it's something that we want to modify after this too, we can certainly do that at another point in the future, but I would think that we should at least get it into the policy, and then we can want to change it in the policy committee to take a look at that. So I consider a motion to approve the above policy on first reading and adopt. The policy reads, indoor air quality. In order to ensure that all school buildings have adequate indoor air quality, the board directs the superintendent to address methods of minimizing or eliminating emissions from buses, cars, delivery vehicles, and other motorized vehicles. The superintendent may delegate the implementation of these methods to building principals. The board encourages the superintendent to utilize methods and recommendations established by various state agencies. In addition to addressing methods eliminating emissions, the building principals are directed to annually investigate air quality in their respective school buildings using the checklist provided by the New Hampshire Department of Education. In support of this policy, the superintendent is authorized to establish regulations and/or administrative rules necessary to implement anti-idling and clear air measures aimed at improving indoor air quality. Anybody want to make that motion?
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments? further?
When they talk about anti-idling, what are you talking about? Cars outside in the front of the building? going
Right.
to the front?
Yeah.
Okay.
In this place, it's a little bit different, but sometimes you'll have, 30 or 40 cars
Yeah.
that used to be up against the air intakes of buildings.
Right.
And I'm not sure how bad it is here, if it's different times of the year. But, yeah, if there is an issue that people bring up and say, I'm getting headaches because I smell these fumes, then we take action and say, no idling whatsoever, whether it's science or education or whatever it happens to be.
And I know part of the toolkit we've been given has to do with paints and varnishes and chemicals that the maintenance department might have in the building and storage. of those kinds of things as well. So it encompasses more than just exhaust.
All those in favor? And this.
That's it. That's it for me.
Yeah. Good tonight.
Just to kind of piggyback on the indoor air quality, we are having our annual or our 5-year school approval facility evaluation towards the end of October. So leading up to that, John and I have to have all of the policies, have a full health inspection, water testing, and all of those kinds of things completed before their visit. They'll come and do a tour of the Whitney Center and the school building. It's all geared at the life and safety.
Emergency plans.
Emergency plans, fire, field,
Drills and
fire drills
inspections.
and inspections and things like that. So that's what John and I are working on that, and they'll be in the building on October 29th to complete that process. And just as a social note, you may have heard that the Whitney Center has been here 10 years, and the Friends of the Whitney have planned a potluck dinner for September the 28th at 5 o'clock, and Dexter and Lucy will be here to lead some contra dancing. So it's a potluck, come on by. I know most of this board participated in getting those approvals and getting this place built, so come and join us. 5 o'clock, 5 to 9.
Thanks, Phil. Good.
I think we're good.
Citizen comments?
Just a couple questions. Is air quality measured in some way?
They do sometimes.
Adequate air quality, what is
Yeah.
that? Yeah.
So what they do is, in patterns, sometimes taking a look, up here, I'm not sure you have the volume of space and to really, but if you find, sometimes in Conway, because I've worked in Conway
Yeah.
forever, so there were air intakes, and sometimes even with the change in the air exchange system years ago,
Yeah.
if you have heavy traffic out on Route 16 in the winter,
Yeah.
sometimes the inversion of the weather would keep, and you'd smell it in. And the rescue departments, fire, we would pull them in sometimes to check for, carbon monoxide, carbon
I was gonna
dioxide,
say they do, yes.
those type of things there. And they'll check for different, if people have recurring headaches in the nurse's office, something along those lines. These are more, the visual inspection of things, so
So-
if you see ceiling tiles that are wet and stained, you're supposed to replace those on a regular basis.
I'm just asking because in the discussion of using the basement and everything, it would be great to have air quality data to show the public. So that's how I was just thinking, okay, so this, whatever mold spores or whatever you smell or feel, that can be measured, so I was just curious about that.
Sure.
So.
That's a great idea, Emily, as far as
Radon.
establishing a record.
Yeah, I mean, radons, carbon monoxide, however people measure. I know someone's really sensitive to mold, and she seems to always know there's a little bit of mold somewhere. I don't know how, beyond that, so. And then the other thing with the discussion about the guidance counselor and the family support liaisons, I know this has been really tricky, just across schools. Is there a separate job description for a family support liaison and a separate job description for a guidance counselor?
Depends on where you ask.
That's what I'm saying.
And it depends on who's filling the role.
That's what I thought.
And I think that's the job that
That's,
Okay.
that's what we've
Jessica
been hunting
and
down for
and
a
Jen
long
have
time.
taken on.
Because I've talked to some different folks, it's like, wow, this is fascinating because how everything is in this day and age. To try to get those folks who inevitably they come into the position are really great at doing all those things, really kind of nailing that down. So anyways, that's awesome that you're pursuing that. And on the early childhood piece, yeah, I mean, we can have more discussions, but I think maybe pulling it off the agenda, what you were talking about, might be a good thing, because, I mean, just my perspective, people get really antsy that you're doing all these things, and, you know, but they're not here, so.
Because it's been on there for every month for the last, whatever, 15
Right.
months. So now it's, we've got to cry wolf or
Yeah.
whatever.
So that's it.
I think that the agenda, not the agenda, I think the board needs to decide whether we're going to pursue it or not. And
Well, and I think the other thing is, and I really, and again, I don't know all that's going on, but with the strategic planning and the tuition contract, it really moved that bigger picture of, let's look at a number of different aspects in terms of moving forward with our kids, let alone the funding of our schools in the state of New Hampshire. Because we're going to continually pick those who are very, you know, folks concerned about their property taxes versus the funding for the schools, so. Anyways.
Thanks, Dylan. Susan? Board member issues, before we get into anything else, I'll just set the next meeting, October 21st, 2019, 6 p.m. here. And that's the joint Bartlett-Jackson meeting at 5 here. Correct.
Correct. Are there any specific topics of conversation or agenda items that you would like for that?
You know, I was going to cover this separately, Gail, but Gail and Joe had a while back sent out something about Jackson student transition experiences entering JBES and KHS. You were asking for feedback. Maybe we can just touch base on that.
Sure.
It's on my list of things to do, Gail, so I will get back to you. I do have, I printed it, so just the topic of conversation being, you know, the current transition activities that we're doing, and then the transition activities to Kennett High School. Just maybe you guys can just touch on that and why you sent this out and where you're at with it.
And maybe we could then generate to a list of questions to ask students, parents, whatever, if we wanted to gather more information.
Yeah. And I know, Kevin, you guys are going to be working on a portrait of a graduate as part of your planning.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, that's, well, yes, the bigger picture, yes. That will be the vehicle.
I don't know whether we need to have further conversation or a process as far as these services that we share between schools. I'm assuming it's probably going to be on the agenda anyway, but I don't know what more there is to talk about that, but you know, the guidance piece we were hit with this year, you know, I guess is the more planning we do with Bartlett as far as sharing services, the better off we'll be. Maybe just to put it on there as a FYI or.
Got it.
Cool. Anything else I need to add?
I just wanted to follow up. We got this email from Micah Burkhart today regarding lead levels in the Whitney Center. Gail, I think you already followed up on it, but I just wanted to make sure that did the board need to do anything about this?
Well, I think as I said to you, we passed, and I have here the report from Granite State Analytical Services, who actually did the water testing. But they do allow a few parts per billion. So I think Micah's point was no parts per billion is the only thing acceptable as far as she's concerned. However, we are well below the legal limit according to federal standards for water. John also talked with Scott. Apparently this building is on a different loop or pipeline. That's why there's none in the school, that the lead is not coming from the fixtures in this building, it's coming from the water system. And as you may have noticed, they are redoing a good section of that. The hope is, there's no guarantee, but the hope is that once that new loop is completed, that ought to eradicate, because the water will flow. Some lead builds up when it doesn't move, and that way the water will be flowing that much more quickly and being used. So it should bring those levels down. So his thought was, let's wait till the water precinct gets their work done, and then we can retest the Whitney Center water.
Okay.
But as far as posting, that would be a decision, I guess, that you as a board would need to make of whether we need to post these bubblers for the public or not. I mean, it's not above the legal limit, but it's up to you and what you think would serve the community, whether we should.
Well, I think the water precinct also sent out like a letter to the entire community about like our water system and what's happening with it currently, and if you need any support with filtration for your home, and that was like several months ago.
The only issue with that though is that a large segment of the population here, plus people coming from out of town into this building,
Right.
I don't get that letter, for instance, so,
Yeah, I look at it, right.
because I'm not.
So it must be on, you must be on the
Oh, it
system.
must
So
Yeah,
this-
but it would only be the families.
Oh, okay.
They would have
Oh,
gone.
that's,
you can
oh, that's
post
totally
this.
true. I didn't even, yeah, I
Yeah,
didn't think
so
of it.
Maybe I'll knock
Okay.
a few Jacksons happening.
You could post the results, I mean.
Yeah, can we just post it?
Yeah, can we post it, could you post it for us, just,
Right,
I could pass it on to the Whitney, friends of the Whitney board.
Even highlight. Like highlight the four Whitney lines, when you put it out here, put the school one over there, and highlight the four school ones.
I think her comment was that the American Academy of Pediatrics for Children says that even that's too high, and that was her point. So yes, we can post this, let people know.
And do we know when they're supposedly fixing this new?
John said 90 days from the date, and it was signed 8/20. So,
Because I would love to see us take another sample, not in February. This one was, and we all know that our water changes throughout the season, so when we do our testing, it'd be
Yeah.
great to get one before winter falls.
Does our water bottle thing over at school have a filtration system?
it does, there's no lead in our
Yeah.
school building at all, it's only here at the Whitney Center.
And
Yeah,
it's
the
tested
bubblers.
monthly.
The bubblers, that was my word.
That's what
Good one. They're bubblers.
Good one, sounds good.
I'm with you, Gail.
So the one in the school has a filter, but the one here doesn't? Is that what you're
Right.
saying?
Right, we bought a bottle filler for the school through a grant for clean water. So it not only filters it, it makes it cold too, so it's more appealing.
Should we think about one of those here? I don't know what the costs are, but should we think about one of those here replacing the bubbler?
You could?
Do you know how much they could run?
Probably a lot.
I don't know.
Why don't we put it on our thinking
Maybe
and
a find
list
out.
for
Let's
next
put our own business for next meeting.
month?
Do we want to put it on the Whitney Community Oversight Committee agenda? Yeah.
Yeah, because we can.
Yeah, we can-
Should we probably put it on the Whitney Oversight Committee agenda?
Yes.
I would also like to know the
Yeah.
cost. If you're talking a couple $1,000, I'd
I'm
like
on
to
that
see us
committee,
move quickly.
But I will be there,
I don't
can you
think
share
so.
it for the next meeting? I will be there.
Yeah.
I'd like to see us move quickly, frame up the budget, and put it in.
Which I mean, I'm okay with, but I'd rather see it go in the Whitney community has a fund for capital improvements to the building, so I mean,
Well, I'm not saying that we don't have that paper, but I'd like this to move quickly and not take, come back to it in January before we find out, yep, they're agreeing, and we should do that.
that makes sense.
I just want to move quickly with it.
But we'll have some numbers for it for the next meeting.
And will you meet with the Whitney thing before the next meeting?
Uh,
I'll have to
You guys-
email them, we just met today,
That
but,
was today, that's right.
Since it's on there, does anybody have anything for the New Hampshire School Board Association Delegate Assembly? I know I bring this up every year, but we can as a board decide, hey, we want this as a topic, or we want this bill to be considered, or things like that, so. Nothing, okay.
I just have one brief announcement. On October 3rd, there's going to be a fundraiser at Shenandoah we're working to build a Gaga pit here in Jackson. So it's
Build a
a
what?
student-led activity. I know, you're like,
Build a
don't talk like that. It's a Gaga pit. So
They're all the rage.
they're all the rage. It's an octagon about 30 inches high. It's wooden paneled sides. Kids of all ages can get inside, and it's a gentle form of dodgeball. So we had a student come forward who would like to build that, and the Shenandoah is taking it on, and we're trying to raise the money for it. So if anyone's free on October 3rd, we would love for you to join us for pizza for the pit.
I will be serving you pizza. Is it a Thursday night fundraiser?
Yeah.
That's my
That's your
night.
hat? Fabulous.
what was it, a Gaga?
Yeah, so I learned about it at Camp Huckett.
Gaga ball, and
And-
you'll be able to see how.
It's really, and it's like it's not skill-based, and so it's like a really inclusive, like-
Kindergartners can play with
Yeah,
sixth
we will.
graders, can play with parents, you don't have to be in shape to play, and it's continually moving, so the kids are jumping around the whole time, and.
We don't
pretty
stand up
cool.
against a brick wall, people hum balls.
No, that was our childhood,
Not as
but no,
much.
nowadays it's such a mess, so. Yeah. Motion to adjourn?
All in favor?
Thanks, guys. Thanks, guys.
Get
Thank you.
your signature.